you're doing well, and welcome to Real Estate with Ryan. I'm Ryan Coleman, as always, your host here on Real Estate with Ryan, and I've got my lovely co-host in the building, Miss April Coleman.
Hello, everyone.
How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you?
It's wonderful that you're doing well. So glad to have you today on the spring day.
Oh, you're killing me today.
We're getting consistent here. We're getting radio shows back to back. There's no sickness. You're doing well.
Don't jinx it.
Wood. I don't think Daniel likes you knocking on wood.
Oh, he probably doesn't.
Please don't do that.
Oh, sorry.
We're in the studio live.
I have to hurry up and knock on wood so that no sickness comes upon us.
So glad to have you back here. So I hope everybody's doing well out there. I know spring is underway. We've done some reshoots this week, changing out a lot of pictures, a lot of video. My marketing team's not the happiest with me, but it's what we got to do. And I always say it's the biggest challenge during this time frame, where you list property right about when spring's ready to break, and then in a couple of weeks you've got to go back and change it.
Yes.
Now the average agent just won't go change it.
That's true.
Have you ever seen those photos where it was like listed in winter and you've got snow?
I know, right?
And here it is, the middle of summer.
I know,
and
you're like,
snow pictures.
Yeah. What? How does the house really look like?
Yeah, so we've had to do that, and so that's always fun. But it's so awesome. We did a video yesterday, and looking at all the trees and the bloom, and I was talking to Daniel, our marketing producer here at the studio, and he goes, everything's just so green. Everything's so vibrant. And I think it's just that beautiful time where it hasn't hit the summer yet, and the flowers are really looking great. Everything's looking so lush. So it is the opportunity that if you have your home on the market, there's a reason that April is one of the busiest times of the real estate season.
Yes. I feel it.
Do you feel it? So my wife's feeling it. So we're feeling the workload. But anyway, thank you guys for joining us. We got a good show for you. And we're talking a little bit before we went on studio. Not sure what we were always going to talk about. Here at the Coleman house, we just say, well, what do we want to talk about? And we just kind of come up with it on the fly. And so we did. So we had this great repeat client that we were helping. And they're in the middle of a process of, buying a foreclosure, kind of the REO market. That's kind of been gone and away in the last couple of years. We're seeing a little bit of that come back into the real estate market. And so we did a foreclosure. And it's been a little while since we purchased one or helped a client do so. And, the client dabbles in real estate and investing.
Yes.
We helped him sell a property over there towards North Knoxville, not far from Western Avenue over there. And so now he wants to do a little investing and a little fixing and flipping. I think they're looking for something for their son as well.
They are.
As an opportunity. So we purchased this property and got it under contract. This is kind of a crazy story. I think you knew about it, but when we were doing submitting the offer. So a lot of the foreclosures that you're out there, guys, and kind of tie into our show. So what we're talking about today is 7 things you need to know before buying a foreclosure. And really just a lot of tips. We're talking about buying a short sale or a foreclosure. Short sale being something that is almost going to the foreclosure status,
right?
But the owner still has control.
Exactly.
The REO or the foreclosure is where it's now traditionally owned, real estate owned by the actual lender now,
by the bank,
and the bank owns it. So we'll talk about that and some tips that we started going through our buyer, getting back to our story there with the offers that we had. So it's a little house over there, maybe about $80,000, nothing fantastic, but as you know, in that price range, inventory is very slim pickings.
Yes, it is.
So we went over there with our client, inspected it, got over there right away, and the frustrating, I think you guys as investors will see that even if you get there first, it really doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't.
You could get there last.
You could get there last, and you still got an opportunity. So a lot of the agents in town that are doing the REOs or have the banks, and it probably comes from the seller as well. When we get that property, they'll accept, a couple offers. Right? Well, our buyer wanted to come in with a very strong offer, cash, no inspection, try to get it done and secure the deal. The frustration part is we put a time frame on the offer and they just let it go. So let it go, meaning they just let 40, 50 people. How many offers were on there? Do you
40.
remember? Was it about 40 or something? So we got 40. An email back. Now listen, they took us almost a week and a half to get back with us. That they had 40 offers, and we were one of the 40 that got accepted.
Yes.
But the only way they accepted would be with A, B, and C conditions, right? So we come through that process. We start talking about it. And then our seller has a couple, or our buyer, he was our seller, excuse me, of the property, and has some questions and really wasn't that adverse about the foreclosure process. So I think you were talking about that, April.
Yes.
It was April. We'll give April the credit today.
Oh, well,
April gets credit. So it was April's idea. Let's talk about that foreclosure and that process, and kind of guys out there, what you need to know, things that are in the contract, things you may not even think about if you're trying to buy a foreclosure in this market. That's a really good deal. So that's the plan today.
Yes, I think the main issue, I was just talking it over with him, was that, well, first, you have to make sure that you do your title work to see if everything comes back okay. Because if it doesn't, then you could be in a really messy situation. And when we've bought foreclosed homes before, we actually have Carla pull title first to see if she'll check it out real quick and see if it's a go or a no-go. She's really good for that portion. But anyway, so I had a conversation with him, and he wanted to add his wife onto the deed, and the seller's title company had already prepared the deed, and it was ready to go, and they were ready for closing. He wanted to add his wife, but they said, well, you can't. You'll have to extend closing if you want to do that, which would be out until May 10th. And in the contract, in small little letters, it says if the buyer delays closing, they will have to pay $100 a day per day until it closes.
That's a good deal for the seller.
That's a great deal for the seller.
$100 a day, I'll take that deal. All right.
I know.
Is that motivation? So if you guys don't think you got any motivation to close, you got a per diem of $100 a day. You better be on top of your game, or you may be forking out some cash.
You're right about that. So then he had to think, well, okay, it's not worth it for $100 a day to close. What am I going to do? So he talked it over and wanted to do a quick claim deed, and then all this other stuff came up with title insurance. So, it's been kind of a disaster, but that's okay. We're getting through it. But this contract for the bank is 12 pages long. And you have to do a purchase and sale contract, for the real estate. And everything has to be lined up and I's dotted and T's crossed and all that good stuff. So you can get yourself into a sticky situation if you don't read the contract fully.
Well, I think that's the biggest challenge in a lot of these REO or foreclosures. And I think the client's aware of it. I think he just, hindsight, he was really excited about getting the property. And finally winning a bid after a couple of lost bids. 40
people, 39.
Yeah, and so that opportunity to win it, didn't really think how he was going to take title. And so sometimes those are things that kind of left, you're just in the excitement of the deal just to actually get the deal.
I know.
And it's not the traditional seller.
I know.
But we negotiated for them. They're not going to pay. They're not going to pay it, charge him $100.
No.
I told them I'll send April down there and get them. So they're not going to do that. We negotiated that. But things you want to think about on the foreclosure process and during there. So these contracts are one-sided, right? So they're one-sided, and they're all favored towards the seller. I think the biggest thing that you want to look at for the contract is knowing whether you have an inspection period or not. Let's start with that. So yes, REO or foreclosed properties allow you to do an inspection.
Yes, they do.
Okay. Now, short sales, that's another phase, but let's also include that. So many times we get some offers, we've helped clients with short sales. And guys, if you're listening and not familiar with our real estate terms, I know we talk about it all the time because we're in the business, but a short sale is nothing more than basically the seller's upside down. They either owe more than what's on the home than they can sell it for in the market. Okay. And what we've got to do is go back to that lender and ask them to take less.
Right.
So that sometimes that's not that easy, but there's a process that we've been able to do, and we're able to go in there and get them to negotiate a payoff. And the reason that the lenders don't want to foreclose on the home because they know it's going to be worth less and have that opportunity. So with a short sale, I think you would say, right, with the short sale, that opportunity to do the inspection, would you do it before or after the approval, or how would you do the inspection versus a foreclosure?
I would do it after the bank approval. That's when I would do it.
Yeah, and so the approval after the bank, and the reason that April's telling you that is we don't want you guys to spend some money on inspection.
Right.
And for some reason that the bank doesn't come back and approve it.
Exactly.
Then you're out $300 or $400 or $500 on the higher price properties.
Right, because
you could
even
be out
with
$1,000.
Right, and even with short sales, they will negotiate price with you.
Foreclosures is totally different. You got about 10 to 14 days to do it. and they will give you an opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're like our client that had 30 or 40 offers,
They say take it as is.
Yeah, you've got to go big or go home. You
know.
got to come in strong, or you'll have no shot. And
That's
so
true.
that's where cash is king in that opportunity. So listen, we're coming on a break. Thank you guys for staying in Real Estate with Ryan. On the other side of the break, we're going to talk more about what you need to know to buy a foreclosure. Thank you guys for staying with us, and we'll see you on the other side of the break.
When it comes to the real estate market, turn to the experts that focus on you. With over 20 years experience, Ryan Coleman with Hometown Realty knows what it takes. It's the right marketing. It's the right exposure. Ryan and April will use their expertise each step as they guide you through the home buying and selling process. Ultimately, it's about results.
You need someone you can trust that is committed to you.
You have a lot of choices, but the choice is simple. It's Hometown Realty.
Is it time for a new place? Ryan Coleman with Hometown Realty has the experience to sell your home quickly and help you find the right home for you. And if he can't sell it right away, he will buy it himself. Life changes, and sometimes your home needs do too. Buying or selling, turn to someone you know you can trust. Ryan Coleman at Hometown Realty.
Well, thank you guys for staying tuned to Real Estate with Ryan. We were on the other side of the break, and my lovely wife I was trying to coast her into bringing us out of the break. She was like, well, you could just do it.
Do it so well.
You do it so well. I was like, oh, yeah, okay, I hear you. She's buttering me up here, so I get it. And if you guys know me, radio, me speaking in the public is not really what I want to do in any aspect.
I know, but you're so good at it.
Oh, I don't know about that. But
You're
we
good at
do
talking.
it. But we do it because we have to, right?
That's
we do
right.
those things because we have to.
We have to give people information.
We do. But it's I'd much rather be in person.
Oh yeah, you are.
Meeting somebody face to face.
Yes.
But thank you guys. You guys give us a lot of support. You're always helping us out there, and a lot of great comments on social media. And then a lot of our great clients are always saying good things about us. So we really thank you guys. I know we don't say it enough. But we try to give you good content, things that are of value. And when else that I don't give good content, we'll just blame it on April.
That is true.
She wasn't prepared. I'll just blame her.
That is true. Pull some information. Oh, this is horrible. Let's talk about something
Now, we
else.
got some good stuff on this second half of the show, so thank you for staying with us. We're talking about foreclosures, what you need to know to purchase it, even get the contract or get the deal done and not lose money.
True.
Now, we're talking about the inventory and foreclosures. There's less deals out there. And on the other side of the break, we're talking about things you need to do inspection-wise, but more about that inspection. So I'd say with your foreclosure, it is a must to get an inspection. And I don't care if you got it as cash deal. I don't care if there's no contingency. Buyer beware, right?
Right.
Buyer
that's
beware.
true.
Make sure you check out these things. Because if you don't check out the foreclosure and foundations and we bought one, we had $10,000 mold problem.
That's true.
Go in there, you have foundation problems.
And then it's more drainage issues. You don't even know that.
You just have so many different options. You want to know what you're going into. And when you're getting into these 40 offers, if it started out at 80 and you ended up at 110,
Yeah.
well, your margins, that's where I tell everybody, the biggest thing that you guys can do if you're investing in real estate, obviously, is give us a call. And I'm not joking about that, right? Because we've been in your seats, we're an investor, but we're fully engaged in the real estate market. So a lot of our clients where we see that them have issues is they come to us the second or third opportunity. Not meaning by choice, but they just come across our paths and they have a situation where they bought an investment property. We weren't there to help them on the purchase or the acquisition. And we're coming at the very end to help them sell it. Or like this builder that we worked with, kind of, opportunity where we're coming at the very last end to solve a problem that, they've had on the market for 6 months or a year where they didn't have success.
Right.
And I would say that's why we do these shows. So if you're thinking about investing or if you're purchasing or want to buy a foreclosure, reach out to us. We don't charge you anything. It's free advice. We're here to help you. That's our true goal. But why that's valuable, two things you're going to need to know in buying a foreclosure. Your money's made what, April, when you buy it and when you sell it, the two most important factors. Because if you don't know the acquisition cost of what you're going to purchase the property for, and this is the hardest part, right? You go on these sites like Realtor.com and Zillow, and you can't rely on them for what the value is.
No.
I mean, there's a value of a great agent in the marketplace that knows your inventory. They know the school districts. They know what's selling, what's not selling. They know where there's a demand. And then that's going to give us a value to know whether we can push the value, we could add more upgrades and see where we can go.
Exactly.
Kind of where the ceiling's at, right?
Right, exactly. You need to know what is a good purchase price, and then what is a selling price that you can get out of it, because you may buy a property in a neighborhood for $100,000, but they're only selling for what? $150. So how much money do you have to spend in that property in order to, if you're going to invest in it to resell it to make money, or if you're going to use it as a rental or something like that. So that's what we were talking
don't
about.
forget the budget. Me and April will do this all the time. We've got one going on now. It doesn't matter what you expect it to sell for. It's never enough, right?
Right.
And the budget is always too short.
Yeah,
There's
like-
always more money to spend, and you're always at Home Depot, Lowe's, or somewhere, and it never ends, right?
Yeah, it never ends.
So these things are involved, and that's why it's so important that you have a contingency
Right.
in the process, that you understand that if you don't have the right exit numbers, you could be bringing money to the table.
Exactly.
And understanding that process. So keep that in mind. I'd say get in with a good agent in the beginning process, that if you don't have that covered, you may lose money on where it's actually going to end up selling for.
Exactly.
So, April, one of those things, or one of the challenges that most of my clients say, where do we find the good deals now? How do we find good properties?
That's what I was going to ask you.
You can ask me. I don't know. They're hard to find.
They are really hard to find.
So there's several ways to buy properties,
Mm-hmm.
right? Talk about some of the ways we found properties, other than being real estate agents, that the average public out there, how would they go about finding foreclosures in today's market in 2019?
There's 3 ways that I can think of. With a real estate agent working with the bank and listing it on the MLS is far and few in between right now, I think, because there is less inventory. So another way is for the auction sites online or downtown at the courthouse.
So
I'd say there's a
let's
couple of
dive into
ways.
this. There's some good. So we got listing with an agent. Some of them, they're on open market. You'll see those. This is bank owned. They're owned by the bank, and then now they went to a listing agent just like us, and they put the property on the market open for the public.
Right.
So we have the auctions. So we have your tax auctions. We have your foreclosure auctions, and those are done online through like a bidding process.
Yes.
Right. And then we have what our courthouse steps, which is another form of auctions, right? Yeah.
Yep.
And so those auctions obviously pose an opportunity for an investor. Some of the things you definitely want to know if you're getting into auction is you have to know what you're doing.
That's true.
And April was talking in the beginning part of the show that we use a good title agency and a good agent, right? I know a couple, 2 of them here. I mean, I know. No, but you got to have a good agent to walk you through that process, because I think April's going to talk about title issues. And do you have something about that Wells Fargo issue?
I do.
Okay, so we'll talk about that process when you go to auction. So when you go to auction, I know my client was frustrated. They said, Ryan, go help us secure a property. But there's so much more that goes on there. So when you go to the ones that are listed with the agents, these are just some tips. Usually these foreclosure deeds are signed. They've already been recorded. We used to, and we still deal with a lot of bank foreclosures, dealing with the banks directly. They will not put them open to the public without the foreclosure deed recorded. Why that's important is that you can't get a loan on it without the foreclosure deed if you're going to be getting a loan. And truthfully, with all the stuff with Bank of America and all these bigger banks with the robo signings, that if you don't have that deed, title insurance is going to be a real big issue there. Number 2, with our auctions down there at the courthouse steps, very, very competitive.
Yes.
They'll require that you actually bring the money in 5 or 10 days. It's a very short period of time.
They like cash.
Cash is king down there, right? And they want you to close pretty quickly. And there's no inspections. And the biggest frustration with those, we have occupants in them, right?
Right.
So there's occupants. And so a lot of those are investors. So you're seeing the ones at the auction, and there's usually the banks don't want to fool with them. They want them off their books, and they
Yes.
send them to the courthouse steps.
And you need to buy it sight unseen.
And so, buying sight unseen is also
It's
fearful.
very risky.
You can do a drive-by, and some of these guys have vacated before you can go by, but more than likely, you've got all the responsibility as a landlord once that property is yours.
It's true.
That's the challenge. And then I think, title that would lead into our Wells Fargo. One thing I want you guys to keep in mind, that if you're doing these online auctions or if you go down the courthouse and things, run your title work before you bid on them. Because a lot of these are bid without title searches.
Yes.
Meaning you'll buy every judgment, every foreclosure, every bankruptcy, that you may lose all your money that you put out there.
Right.
Tell the public about kind of what we're talking about Wells Fargo real quickly and what happened to them during that process.
So this is a story about Wells Fargo. So apparently, if you haven't heard, there was a computer glitch and it affected about 545 customers of Wells Fargo who ended up losing their house. They were apparently wanting to do some loan modifications, and they denied 870 of the loan modifications, the requests that came in. So there was specifically one gentleman that they interviewed, and he was wanting to do a remodification. They said okay, but then they came back a year later, denied his loan, and then a year after that said, oops, sorry, we made a mistake. You actually could have qualified, and we foreclosed on your home by mistake. So that actually happened to 545 people. So what happened was that title wasn't ran, somebody bought the property, it wasn't supposed to be bought, and that person was out the money.
No.
Craziness.
No. So there's a lot of scary things if you're investing as we're winding down this show. Hopefully these are some helpful tips. We're going to put that on our blog, ryancoleman.org. So if you have some information, give us a couple of days. We'll have all that information up. We'll also have this out on social media. So if you need to replay it. If you need any help in real estate, it's the easiest number, best number in real estate, 693-SOLD, or you can visit me at ryancoleman.org. You guys have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you.